morning we're going to share a special story, and it's a story entitled Arnie, the Donut. Now, you may wonder what in the world a donut has to do with worship, but this happens to be my grandchildren's favorite book of the younger ones that live in this area. It's their favorite book. They asked me to bring this. Did you bring Arnie the Donut? One time they sent me a message that said, please do not forget, you always need to bring Arnie the Donut. So they tell me that each time that I go to their house, that I need to bring Arnie the Donut. Arnie the Donut was written by Lori Keller, who is one of the family members of one of our parishioners, and who has written various stories and done teaching at schools and done various things. And so she's done some great kids things. But Arnie the Donut was about a donut who was baked specially by this baker. And, you know, he had a personality. And he said it was worth going into the vat and being boiled and fried. And it was worth all of that because he knew there was just something special. And he got to see the other donuts being made as filling was squeezed into them. And all these things happened with these various donuts as they were being created by the baker. Now, Arnie thought it was wonderful when he was covered with chocolate and he was put, millions of sprinkles were put on his body. And there's a little side note that says it really wasn't millions. But anyway, Arnie thought it was millions of sprinkles that were put on his body, and then he gets put in the case. And he tries to have conversations with the donuts that are in the case around him. Some of them don't speak very much. And so, but nevertheless, he tries to have conversations with these donuts. And he just can't wait. And he sees that people come into the bakery and they choose a special donut and they take it away. And he can't wait till the time somebody comes and chooses him. And so Mr. Bing comes into the grocery store or into the bakery one day, and Mr. Bing points to Arnie. And Arnie is delighted, and he is picked up gently, and he's put on a little soft napkin, and then he's put inside of a paper bag, and he's not quite sure about the paper bag, but nevertheless, Mr. Bing takes him off into the car. Arnie wishes that the bag had windows so he could see out, but he can't see out, but he rides in the bag wondering where Mr. Bing lives. Finally, Mr. Bing gets home. And Mr. Bing takes out Arnie and lays him gently on this plate. And Arnie looks at the plate, and it's kind of a plate with an old design on it. And Arnie's thinking, I probably wouldn't have chosen this plate, but it'll do. It'll be okay for right now. And so he's so excited about his adventures with Mr. Bing that are about to happen. Well, he closes his eyes and he feels Mr. Bing take a hold of him, and he thinks, oh, how sweet. And Mr. Bing lifts him, and he's going higher and higher. And he kind of wonders where he's going, and he looks and he opens up, and Mr. Bing's mouth is wide open. And Arnie said, wait, what do you think you are doing? Now, I don't know about you, but if you've had your morning donut, you don't expect it to speak back to you. And Mr. Bing puts him down, and he goes, why, I was going to eat you. Eat me. Do you make a practice of eating all of the donuts? And he said, well, that's generally the practice. I go in every morning and I get a donut, and my idea is I will eat it. And Arnie's panicked. And he's panicked. He said, I got to call the baker. I got to let him know. Don't warn all their donuts. You are going to be eaten. And he calls the baker, and the baker said, why, Arnie, I think they already know. I think they know that that's what their purpose is. Their purpose is to be good and to be eaten. Arnie can't believe it. He's thinking, oh my goodness, I have got to get out of here. This isn't a safe place. Anyway, Mr. Bing says, he looks at Mr. Bing and he said, maybe we can work out an arrangement. I can do something else for you. And so they both come up with lists of what they're going to do for each other, and neither one of them find that list is going to work. But Mr. Bing now can't eat Arnie. It's just not the same thing. He says, I can't eat you, Arnie. But since we can't agree on what we're going to do together, I think you'll just have to go. And so Arnie starts to leave, and Mr. Bing sees there's a sign in this housing development where he lives, and there's not to be any dogs, no dogs allowed. And Mr. Bing gets this great idea. Arnie could become his pet dog, because Arnie's not really a dog, but Arnie could be his pet dog, and that way Arnie would have a purpose. And so that's what happens. Arnie learns how to be an obedient dog donut. And life ends, and it was all good. And Arnie and Mr. Bing live happily ever after. So, it was better than they hoped for. But the purpose of sharing Arnie the donut this morning is that sometimes Arnie had this vision about why he was created that was totally different than the reason the baker thought he created him, totally different than the people expected he was being created for. But he had this vision that he was to be something special to someone, more than just being eaten. And because he believed that so thoroughly, it ended up being that he was really special to someone, more than just being eaten. And sometimes our faith is like that, when we allow our faith not to be beaten apart, and we believe in the dreams that God's given to us. And we don't let anybody else take them away from us, but we continue to rely on the Lord. The power of our faith and the power of our trust goes far beyond. And so I thought Arnie was just a fun way of sharing a little bit that we'll look at more this morning as we look at our message of faith and God's power.